Hello from the Hilltop. Welcome to today's Alumni Career Services webinar sponsored by the Georgetown University Alumni Association. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your workdays to connect virtually with fellow Hoyas for today's webinar, Find Your Place in the World of Work for Young Alumni and Recent Graduates, presented by Hallie Crawford. Hallie is a certified career coach, speaker, author, and national career expert based in Atlanta, Georgia. She's regularly featured in the media and has undergraduate and graduate degrees from Vanderbilt University and the University of Illinois. For the past 19 years, her team of coaches has helped people find jobs that make them want to jump out of bed in the morning and go to work. She's a longtime webinar presenter with GUAA Alumni Career Services, and we're so thrilled to host her today. I'm Sarah Smith, Senior Associate Director of Alumni Career Services, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. Before we get started with today's broadcast, I'd like to share just a few webinar tips and reminders. Today's webinar broadcast is being recorded, and the webinar recording will be made available on our Alumni Career Services YouTube channel within 48 hours of this broadcast. You'll receive the link to the recorded webinar in a post-webinar email, which will also include registration for upcoming webinars and more ways to stay connected to the Hilltop. Hallie will take questions at the end of her presentation. Please send in questions as you have them using the questions area of the GoToWebinar system. And finally, if you're having any technical difficulties or other issues, please submit those concerns to me via the questions area of the GoToWebinar system as well. Hallie, as I turn things over to you, I'd like to just take a minute to say congratulations to the class of 2020. Congratulations on all y'all have accomplished. Graduating from Georgetown is quite an achievement and so impressive, and you guys have so much to be proud of. So congratulations, and thanks for joining us today. Hallie, I'm pleased to go ahead and turn things over to you now.
Thank you, Sarah. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. And absolutely huge congratulations. I know during these crazy times, obviously, it doesn't feel the same as if we had an in-person commencement, but please know that your hard work getting to where you are for the graduates that are on the call today, it is definitely recognized. And hopefully we will all look back on this time as, times that we have learned from and grown from as much as possible. So as Sarah said, I'm Hallie Crawford. I'm a certified career coach. Our company is actually based in Atlanta, Georgia, but my sister went to Georgetown actually and got her master's degree there as well. So I have a special affinity for the school. We're going to be talking today about finding your place in the world of work. And, as we discuss our tips and tools today, I am going to be talking about how we adjust our plans and kind of what we see is going on in the world given COVID and everything else too. So we will discuss that. As Sarah said, this will be recorded. There is a handout if you want to take a look at that in the handout section, and that will be sent to you afterwards as well. And finally, we aren't going to do video today. I was talking with Sarah about this at the beginning that, I know that a lot of us need and want that connection. And I feel like this whole process of being in lockdown has been kind of like come and go in waves. And I know a lot of our clients are saying, I'm so sick of Zoom meetings right now. So because I've got a lot going on in my space with kids and dogs and everything else, I didn't want that to be a distraction. And to give us all a break from what some of us may feel, I'm sick of the Zoom meetings, like we said in the video. So here's the deal, everyone. And on our next slide, I'll show you our agenda here and what we're going to cover. Regardless of the economy, the world situation, and everything else, it is really important to think about long-term career management. And I get that some of you may be like, gosh, why does that matter right now? I just want to get a job and I'm concerned or scared about that or whatever's going on, and we get that. But the sooner you can take charge of your career and your career path and make really good, conscious, thoughtful decisions about what's going to be best for you and your future and what's going to be most rewarding, but also financially provide that stability for you as well, the better off you're going to be. So even if you are just starting out in your career, for those students or really young alum out there today, it is important to start thinking about this now. And in some ways, I feel like maybe this coronavirus crisis has given us an opportunity to really think about, what is truly important to us long term in our personal lives, but also in our career. So that's one of kind of the blessings, I think, of having this time. So here's our agenda and what we're going to talk about today in terms of long-term strategic career planning and what you need to be thinking about in order to be mindful of, developing your career goals and doing it in the right way. Key number one here at the bottom of this slide is to define clearly your career aspirations. And we're going to talk about the career model that we use with our clients, and I'll give you advice about how to start doing that today. Key number two is to begin now building your personal brand and understanding what that is. Even if you're not really sure what it is, start thinking about it and considering it now. When I look back after I graduated from Vanderbilt, I had no idea what my brand was, much less, what I wanted to do with my career. And I wish that I had taken more time and thoughtful time to figure all of that out, because I know I would be a lot further along in my career than I am today if I had done that. And then key number three is to develop a plan, and this is your strategic career plan, and we'll talk about the elements that need to go into that plan today. Just by the way, you are getting a recording of this, as we said, but if anyone would like a copy of the presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at admin@halliecrawford.com. As always, we would be happy to provide that to you, so just email us there. All right, so a little bit more about the importance of career management. What we have found, and this is regardless of the world economic situation, is really our jobs are one of, if not our best asset out of all the assets that we'll end up having. Because stuff's going to happen like we are seeing today. Our jobs may go away. It might be right sizing, like our company might get sold. There might have to be layoffs or furloughs. We may need to relocate or whatever it is. And so we need to think long term in terms of our career so that we remain marketable to the next employer that we need to be reaching out to and contacting or applying for a job. We do know that today, and this was before COVID, so this may actually go up just a little bit, but the average person, like you might have heard of the gig economy, it's where people do short-term stints in a lot of different places. That's becoming more and more popular and more of the norm. But a lot of people will have about an average of 11 job changes over their lifespan. It's not like it used to be where you would, work at Ford or whatever it was, punch a time clock, and then you go into retirement. So you have to remain fulfilled in your career and be mindful of that. Make sure that you're being challenged, but also that you remain marketable, like we said just a moment ago. These are critical things to be thinking about. So as we start to talk about key number one in this, defining your career aspirations. So when we think about your long-term strategic career plan, what we want you all to do, and this is basically what we tell all of our clients as well, is we want you to be thinking about, okay, what is my 5, 7, 10-year goal, whatever is the right time frame for you, but we usually recommend as a starting point, what's my 1-year goal, 3-year goal, and 5-year goal? And you start at the 5 years out. Okay, what would I like to be doing in 5 years, ideally, and then work backwards from there. Okay, so you want to develop a timeline for what your goals and aspirations are. And now I get and understand, again, given everything going on, some of you may be like, I just need to get something now, and that's okay. And we'll talk about, if that's the case, some of the things that you can be thinking about and considering right away so that you can just get the ball rolling. Okay, so we'll get there in a moment. But one of the other things I wanted to mention to you all is, as you're creating your long-term plan, is we want you to develop action steps, obviously, to work towards that long-term plan, but develop a vision as well. So it's not just about, okay, these are the basic, tactical things I need to do in the next 3 to 6 months, et cetera. But you want to think about, what's your big picture vision? What does success look like to you? How do you define it for yourself? Is it work-life balance? Is it something else? Really think about kind of the broad strokes in the picture of it, because that image, or having a vision, just like an organization or company will have a mission and a vision statement too, there's that kind of touchy-feely part that needs to happen as well, because that's what's going to help you be motivated and move towards the long-term goal. And then ideally, we want you, as you've started to write out your plan, we want you to check and update it at least quarterly as a bare minimum, because this is going to help you stay on track with your goals and make sure if you need to make any adjustments that you're able to do so along the way. So Sarah, if we could get this first poll pulled up, that would be great. We are curious, and we understand if a lot of you are like, no, I don't have this plan, and that's why I'm here today, totally fine. But we're curious if anyone even has the beginnings of a strategic career plan, even if it's just something, kind of draft written on in Word or on a piece of paper, whatever it is. If you could participate in that poll, that'd be great. And part of why we do these is to also let you know, everyone, that, we're not alone. Like, we don't expect you to have this all buttoned up. I certainly did. When I graduated from Vanderbilt, I had no idea what I wanted to do, much less had, it laid out for 5 years. And I was always really jealous of those people that seemed to know I want to be a doctor from birth. And, that was it. So Sarah, if you could share the results verbally, that'd be great too.
Sure. So it looks like from our audience, 72% said no, they do not have a strategic career plan, and 28% said yes, they do. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, everybody, for sharing. And Sarah, thank you for sharing that too, because I always have trouble figuring out exactly where these are, and then I get sidetracked. So that helps me a lot. So you're not alone if you don't have one or the beginnings of one. And realize that as we talk about these different keys today, everyone, we don't expect this to be done within a week. Give yourself, I would say a few months to really figure out what your long-term plan is, because this can take time. But even the fact that you're starting to think about it in the first place, that you're here today, is huge. So just realize that this can be baby steps and it's going to take some time, but start to think about it now ASAP, because if you do that, you're going to be a lot further ahead than peers that haven't. So the 3 components to your plan that you need to have in place are basically, who are you? What's your brand? Who are you as a professional? Who do you want to be? Where are you going? What are your career aspirations? And, what's your specific career goal? And then how will you get there? Let's take a look at our ideal career model for a moment to start talking about the who, so to speak, okay? And this kind of leads into our branding discussion. So if you take a look at this slide, this is the career model we use with all of our clients. It shows you exactly what you need to be considering in order to define the right career path for you and know what the right fit is. Brainstorm different ideas and see what's out there, but also, to understand like the different career paths that you may have been considering, which one is going to be the right one. So think first about, okay, who am I as a professional? And these are the elements that the arrows are pointing to that we want you to be starting to think about and evaluate based on who you are as a person and as a professional. I'll explain each one here for just a moment. So we start with the fulfillment piece of the model. We want you to think about what your values are career-wise and professionally, what your passions are and your interests are in terms of the tasks that you enjoyed performing at Georgetown in classes that you took. What are the courses that you enjoyed the most? And what were the tasks or values that are most enjoyable to you based on those classes, so that you have a sense of, at your core, what is going to give you meaning in your professional life in the long run. It can be anything. It could be, I love working with numbers, like financial analysis, and I want to help a company or organization be more organized with their financial planning, for example. All the way to someone else might say, I loved my psychology courses. I was a, psychology major, and I really want to help people with their mental health or, health and wellness, a weight loss coach or whatever. It can be any different thing, but you want to think about what it was and has been enjoyable for you and what some of your values are. What are the most rewarding experiences that you had at Georgetown, but that you've also had in your personal life, to start to identify clearly what gives you meaning and what would give you meaning in your work. Next, you want to think about your strengths. Where did you excel in your classes? Where did professors point out to you that, they saw you had a natural gift for something? What do your friends and family say they see you as being really good at? Interview them. Ask them a little bit more about what they see are your strengths. This is part of your brand, but also helps you understand the strengths that you want to be leveraging. What kind of job is going to work for you based on the strengths that you want to use? You want to look at your past education and experience as well. So we've already talked a little bit about education. So coursework, what is your degree in, and how does that prepare you for the career paths that you're considering? Also look at your experience. And when we say this for either students or young alumni, we mean any volunteer experience, but also any jobs that you had while you were in school, during the summer, or internships or anything else. And the other thing to consider here too is, what projects did you work on? And are there things that you could put down as relevant experience, even though it's not in the traditional work setting? It's still relevant if there are big things that you did, leadership positions that you held at Georgetown as well. And then the last piece is to look at and understand what your personality type is. And this is one, by the way, everyone, that a lot of people forget and skip over. And it causes problems for them long term in their career because they don't think about, are they more introverted or extroverted? And what does that mean in terms of the right role for them, as well as the right work environment? They don't think about, do I want to be in a more leadership position, or am I more kind of a behind the scenes person? Am I more creative and kind of want to be outside the box, or more kind of formal and want to be in a more traditional environment? So the personality piece is really, really important. And this is one I want to point you all to because it's one that people forget a lot. It's really helpful to do some quick personality assessments online, understand, what type of person you are, because here's the thing with this one too, everyone, is you can learn new skills and enhance some of your strengths. You can take more classes, you can gain more experience, and you can change the work environment by going to a different company or organization, right? But you can't really change what your personality type is. Introverts aren't suddenly going to become extroverts, okay? This is something that's relatively, I don't want to say stagnant, like in a bad way, like we can't learn and grow, but it's a critical piece that it's harder to change. So you really need to think about that. The next piece is you want to think about where you're headed, and using this model, you can do the same thing. So the other way, everyone, that you can use this model, and I took away the arrows here to kind of talk about the model in a different way for a moment, is all of these pieces are the components that you need to consider in order to know what the right career path is for you. You have to consider each of these items. You need to consider whether a job is going to be rewarding for you, whether it's going to make the best use of your strengths, education, and experience. Are you going to enjoy the tasks that you're going to perform every day? And again, we said personality type. Is it going to be the right work environment? This is another one that's a make or break. And obviously, is it going to pay you enough? So in order to start brainstorming career ideas, everyone, and evaluating whether those ideas are the right ones, especially, for example, if you've got some ideas and you're trying to figure out which one is the right fit, or you're trying to vet out what other people are telling you in terms of advice, job-wise, you need to use this as your checklist and go line by line or piece by piece and say, okay, is it going to have all of these components? This is going to help you determine long-term where you're headed. And by the way, when you use this model, everyone, this is the model we use with our clients, and they love it because it's very straightforward, but it incorporates everything that you need to consider. You start with the fulfillment piece, you go across here to the left, then you go up to education, experience, personality, work environment, and compensation. The second thing I wanted to say about this, and then we'll keep moving, is that some of you may have taken an assessment, like a career test or strengths assessment before. A lot of people have. Like StrengthsFinder, that one is great for identifying your strengths and also helping you prepare for interviews, by the way, because it gives you language to talk about your strengths. But a lot of people will say, well, I took this test and it didn't tell me what I was supposed to do, though. Or the test may have spit out some possible career ideas for you, but you're like, I didn't want to be any of those. It was like a circus clown, a firefighter, or something else, and those aren't things that I'm interested in, right? Here's the deal with the assessments, everyone. We do recommend them. They can be incredibly helpful because we find that they're accurate and they give you good information in a short period of time. That's what's great about them. What you have to keep in mind, though, is that the assessments are typically only testing you for one of these pieces of the model. Your strengths, maybe, your personality type, and maybe some of them, they're all different, like Myers-Briggs, for example, is personality type. StrengthsFinder assessment is strengths. But what you'll notice here is it's not testing for anything else. These tests aren't saying, well, we know you want to make this amount of money, so we're spitting out this answer. They're not testing you for what the right work environment is. They're not always testing you for fulfillment. So they're great, but they're limited. So this is why you really need to use the model, please, in order to round out the rest of the picture, okay? Then finally, the next kind of key here is to think about, as we said, okay, how am I going to get there? So once you start to identify and brainstorm some of the different possible career paths that you may want to pursue or may consider, these are some of the things that you want to incorporate in your plan as well in order to make this a reality, right? So it could be training and it could be some experience. So we'll talk about each one of these for just a moment. So we know that you most likely just graduated or will soon, or maybe you did about a year ago, give or take. But regardless, so you've got that really good, Georgetown degree on your resume, which is fantastic. Is there anything else that you need to be doing to help you be qualified for the jobs or career paths that you're considering? Certifications that are online are even more popular these days, given everything going on. There's places like lynda.com, coursera.org that will provide very low cost, or even in some cases, given COVID, free classes and online courses. And by the way, yes, we have had people take or get an online certification or take a multi-session class, and they'll put it on their resume and on their LinkedIn profile because it's relevant. In some cases, this is the most training or kind of relevant experience you can get during these times. The other thing that we want you to consider for number one as well is that we have had clients do online and remote volunteering. Volunteermatch.org is a good website. And also idealist.org is another good website that can help you identify possible opportunities to volunteer your time a little bit and gain some real world experience. Yes, it's free, but it's for a short time. We've had several clients do this actually, and one woman in particular in Atlanta, she volunteered to work on in a group. So there was a group leader and a group working on a website for a nonprofit out in California. It was a 3-month project, and guess what? After that, she got a recommendation and a reference from the group leader as well as from the client. So she got this experience, she put it on her resume, and it was actual tangible experience that she, received. So keep in mind that especially during these times, there are some creative ways that we may be able to get some additional experience and additional training online. Another place to look to do possible like part-time work or consulting work, whether you just need something right now or you're looking to beef up or enhance your skills. We also want to suggest to you that you look at flexjobs.com and remote.co, as well as job boards like Glassdoor and LinkedIn. Now, here's the deal, everyone. With flexjobs.com, for example, there's going to be stuff on there that you're not that interested in. That's either a little bit salesy or fluffy or whatever. It's not going to be relevant for every single person, but it can give you ideas about other things. You may want to hang your shingle out there as, a freelance project manager or whatever it is. There can be ways that you can get kind of freelance work during this time as well while people are working remotely. And some organizations, they can't afford their full-time staff. They may want to hire some people kind of part-time remotely, okay? The second thing you want to think about in terms of your strategic career plan long-term is, okay, what are the critical roles that you want to have along the way to get to your 5-year goal? So what are the job titles? What's the kind of progression for my career? One way to take a look at this is to look at people's LinkedIn profiles who are in the job or the jobs that you're considering right now, and look at their work history. It's another way to look at LinkedIn or leverage LinkedIn. Look at their work history and what were the roles that they had along the way. What is their past education, their certifications and training? Those are the people that you can reach out to for informational interviews. And by the way, this is a great way to leverage your Georgetown Alumni Association. And Sarah did not pay me to say that. I tell all of our clients this. Their LinkedIn group is a fantastic place to start networking with people and learn more about, hey, how can I get to that place I want to be in several years? Or even, can I get some quick advice on my job search right now? And how do I think outside the box? Is your industry in any way, what are they doing to handle this remote work, to get some ideas from them? If any of you are currently working full-time in a position, one of the things you need to think about is, can I get where I want to be long-term at my current job and at my current organization? You may need to be asking yourself, do I stay or do I go? And you may say right now, and I would recommend this, stay put until things settle down a little bit. I do want you all to know, just as a little bit of a note of positive information here, that we do know that a lot of people are having a hard time and suffering during this time. And I want you to know that the majority of our clients, they're getting jobs. We've had 2 clients get brand new jobs in the past couple of weeks. A man who got a brand new job in April. Like, what I want you all to know is that there are places out there that are hiring. Our clients are getting contacted by employers, by recruiters, et cetera. Is it a little bit slower and kind of up and down? Yes, absolutely. But please try to stay optimistic and positive. There are places that are hiring. We just got to be creative and think about, okay, how do I take my, skill set online a little bit more? The next thing you want to think about, number 4, is what kind of support and accountability you need to get to where you want to go. And this is a big one that I tended to forget early on in my career. I would just say, I can do it all on my own. And I didn't let my friends or family members know, hey, I need some support or help here. And here's what I need help with. Don't be afraid to ask for assistance from people, okay? And let them know exactly what you need. Make sure, based on number 5, what you need to do to enhance your network, to establish yourself in this new industry or in the industry you want to be in, and start networking, right away. Even during this time, everyone, some people have a little bit more time to actually talk with you. Some people are slammed. We are finding it's one or the other. It's kind of both extremes there. But start networking now, because it will serve you enormously now and down the line. And then finally, we do want you to think about and add into your plan, and then we'll get to the next slide here, building your brand. We want you to think about what have been in the past your typical blocks to success. What do you need to be mindful about in terms of your personality type and where you tend to fall down? Do you procrastinate? Do you avoid dealing with, something difficult, or, I don't want to step out of my comfort zone? Whatever it is, you need to have a plan for dealing with those blocks to success as well. You can't just have the plan and then look back and say, in a year, well, I didn't do anything about this. I thought about it and I talked about it on the, and I wrote down some action steps in this webinar, but then I didn't do anything about it. And because I didn't have, okay, how am I going to grow and progress as a professional too? So you need to add that in your plan. Key number 2 is right now, as much as possible, identify and start to build out your personal brand. So here's the deal, everyone, and I want you to think about this, because you need to understand first what your brand is, and then we'll get to the second poll here in just a moment. Your brand, obviously, it represents the value that you provide to whomever it is that you want to be serving, clients, businesses, customers of any kind, okay? If you are thinking, just by the way, gosh, I'm not good at self-promotion, and I'm not supposed to do that, I'm uncomfortable with it. What we mean here is it's not about self-promotion. If you truly come from a place in your heart of, I can help people or organizations in this way because I have this skill set or these strengths, it's a completely different animal, okay? So what I have found, when I first started my coaching business 19 years ago, it was hard for me at first. I don't want to be a salesperson, and, I didn't want to be pushy with people. But the more I got in touch with, look, I have this skill and I want to help people, the more comfortable I was explaining what my brand was from an authentic, genuine place. And it didn't come across as self-promoting at all. So think about it, everyone, in terms of creating value. What value can you bring to the world based on, going back to the model, what your strengths are, your expertise, your experience, et cetera, okay? We have found, unfortunately, that not a lot of people have a truly defined personal brand. It's kind of a tough thing, we get that. And that even less so, even if people have one, they're not living it consistently. I still feel like with our business, and Sarah, if you want to launch this poll, that'd be great. We are still working on fine-tuning our brand all the time, communicating it effectively to people. This is an ongoing process. But we really want for you all to think about the things that we're going to reference on this next slide here, to start to think about, okay, who are you as a professional, and even more so, what you bring to the table, because this is going to help your job search enormously, plus help you get to the long term in your career too. So we'll pause for a moment for you all to participate in the poll. Thank you for that.
So I'll just leave this open for a couple more seconds here. Do you have a personal brand in writing? Yes or no? And Hallie, just going to go ahead and close this. It looks like the majority of folks, 92% said no and 8% said yes. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, everybody. Perfect. All right. So going back to the model a little bit, everyone, one of the things that I did want to reference or mention to you, that in terms of your brand, most people understandably think, like we said a moment ago, it's mostly about the value, and therefore it's mostly and really only about my strengths, my education, and my experience. What I want you to do is I want you to also consider, as part of your brand, though, are your values and your passion. Why are you getting into this career path? Why did you choose the degree that you received at Georgetown? Okay, so talk to people as well about why I'm enthusiastic and passionate about my work. We write this in people's LinkedIn profiles. When our LinkedIn professional works with our customers to help them develop their LinkedIn profile, in their about statement, she has them talk about their passion in some way, shape, or form, even if we don't use that word exactly, okay? We had a client who was a VP at a large association in DC. A couple years ago, he was charged with hiring 11 new people for his kind of brand new department within 3 months. He point blank told us, if someone who I'm interviewing with cannot tell me why they're passionate about what they do, I'm not going to talk to them further. So this was one of his questions during the interview process. So consider and include why you are engaged in what you do, why you feel strongly about it, and why your values are aligned with the organizations that you're applying to, because that will mean something to them, I promise you. It's a big deal these days, even more so than it used to be, okay? And also, think too about your personality type and those intangible soft skills that you may have. These could be things like, I'm just a great natural mediator, or I'm great at understanding other people's perspectives and having empathy for them and really being able to see things from multiple different angles. Okay, so think about your soft skills too, because that is a big part of your brand. And when you are in the running against other people for a particular job, right, and you have a stronger set of soft skills, they're going to hire you over the other people. Because the thing with quote unquote soft skills, everyone, and different people call those different things, but is employers can't teach you that. They can send you to a class to learn a new software program or, whatever it is. But it's hard to teach someone how to be a good, to have better empathy, right? That's not something you just go to a class to learn. So these are things that you absolutely need to include in your brand as well, okay? One of the other things that we encourage you to leverage as a tool to identify what your brand is, this is a leadership wheel from an organization called Development Dimensions International, highly regarded management consulting firm. These are the 10 leadership strengths that they feel are the most relevant and important in today's economy, okay? And granted, this could change a little bit. Online and remote working remotely should be added to the list, okay, given what's going on. But you can use this for now to rank yourself. Okay, where do I stand on each of these leadership kind of qualities and qualifications? Rank yourself, and I would encourage you to have other people rank you as well, coworkers, your current supervisor, professors, friends, family, whoever would be useful to identify where you stand on each of these so that you can start to get, okay, look, this is where I stand in terms of leadership. I am really good, for example, at coaching and developing others and building consensus and commitment. That's who I am. I'm a relationship person. Or someone else may be, I'm a great leader with multiple generations and having this empathy. So think about all of these leadership strengths. Rank yourself on the wheel to identify part of what your brand is and what some of these pieces are, and then also ask other people to rank you as well. And then finally, as part of your building and understanding your brand, and your branding statement, by the way, it should be on your resume and on your LinkedIn profile. Like, all of this text can be used, and you can intersperse it or use across all of these places, and you need to, so people understand what your brand is. Think about what your top strengths are and interview other people, though, too, to get that objective opinion. So interview 3 people in the next week. This could be one of the things that you do with friend, family member, coworker, like we said, former classmate, current classmate. But ask other people, because here's the deal, everyone. Our clients might feel like when they come to us, oh, yeah, I know what my strengths are. Some people say yes, some people say no. But when they go and talk with other people about their strengths, they are, number one, validated by some of the things they already thought and believed, but they get more detail about it and some examples of what those strengths are that you can then use on your resume, LinkedIn, during an interview. And also, they get an objective opinion about strengths that they may not have realized were actual strengths because they assumed everyone else is, good at this too. Just because it's natural for me, it must be for everyone else. We discount what comes naturally to us, so be careful of that. And interview these 3 people with these 3 questions. What are your top strengths? What do you do better than anyone else they know? And when they think of you, what 3 adjectives come to their mind? Those are good adjectives to use in your branding statement, okay? So be careful about discounting what comes naturally to you. And by the way, when you interview 3 people, you can do more than this. That's fine. It's at a minimum 3. Ask a blend of male, female, friends, family member, all of that, because we all show up differently in different areas of our lives, and we can get some good kind of perspectives from different people, okay? So remember, going back to the 3 components to your brand, and then we'll go to key number 3, is who do you serve, what makes you unique, and why should they believe you? So your branding statement, again, as we said, is about the value you provide, but you also want to include in that statement, who do you serve? Do you work with professionals or specific types of businesses or financial analysts to help them do their work better, whatever kind of your target audience is? What makes you unique? What's that blend of soft skills and experience and expertise that you have? And why should they believe you? What results have you achieved so far? Even if it's results within school, projects you worked on, etc., put out there what some of the results are. Don't be shy about that and worry that, oh, well, it's not in a traditional work environment, so it doesn't count. It can absolutely count. You want to talk to people about those experiences you've had so far. So key number 3 is to develop the plan. And we know that a lot of people, they don't want to develop a plan for whatever reason, or there are obstacles to doing so. And we've got our 3rd and last poll here that we'll do. Sarah, if you want to go ahead and pull that up and get it started, that'd be great. A lot of the obstacles we see with our clients are these things on the page: fear, procrastination, they're uncertain about their direction, or some of you understandably may be fearful and concerned that, I don't need a plan today, Hallie. I just need to go get a job because I'm freaked out and understandably about the economy. So we're curious how many of you would say fear is your biggest obstacle given today's economy or just outside of that. And then Sarah, I think there was a little bit more to that too, which you're sharing, which is great. Thank you.
Yeah, and then if fear is not your biggest obstacle, or perhaps it's one of a couple obstacles, if you feel comfortable, we'd love to hear what those other obstacles are, so that maybe Hallie can address those, or so that we're aware. That also helps us with, even ideas for future programming. So, but to hear from you guys what you need help with. So feel free, if you'd like to share those in the questions area of the GoToWebinar control system, that would be great. I'm just going to leave this open for a couple more seconds to keep collecting responses.
Great. Yeah, and we realize that there's a lot going on, everyone, and there could be a lot of different obstacles, and we totally get it. And obviously, we want you to push past all of those. And apparently my dog agrees.
Glad we got to hear from him. Her?
Him. Still kind of a puppy, little bit hyper.
Oh.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So it looks like about half and half. So 48% said yes, fear is your biggest obstacle, and 52% said no, it's something else. And then in terms of things folks shared out, uncertainty about the future, lack of knowledge on the right path to take, uncertainty in terms of passions or areas of interest, hesitant to reach out to people, put myself forward because I don't have the experience necessary to be successful. Yeah. These are great. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, everybody. And please know you're not alone, and we totally get it. When you're talking with people, and actually let's go ahead and get to the next slide here so you guys can read it while I'm chatting here for a moment. When you're talking with people and interviewing them, totally a great idea to brainstorm career ideas with them for you if you're trying to identify what your passions and interests are. Because, by the way, your strengths could actually be some of your passions and interests. So the things that you're good at naturally, a lot of times those are good clues to the possible direction, okay? So in terms of key number 3 in developing the plan, and then we'll start to move towards Q&A here in just a couple of moments, is we want you to basically be like the CEO of your career. It's like you are an organization, and your career as one of your best assets needs to be kind of like your own little business. And we want you to run it effectively, okay? So that's what we do with our clients all day, every day, is help them figure out their direction in the first place, make that happen, get the job, and then be successful in that career path long term. So first, we want you to be clear on your direction. And for those of you that need that the most, that's where you want to go back to the model and be looking at, okay, how do I brainstorm ideas from here? We do have a workbook, by the way. Feel free to reach out to us. There's a workbook on our website. It's very low cost. It's designed, it has our whole coaching process inside of it. And it's designed for you to be able to work through the process of figuring out your direction on your own. So please feel free to email us about that, and maybe we'll incorporate it into the follow-up email, Sarah. The second thing we want you to think about, as we've discussed, is marketing your skills. So identifying and building your brand, and then saying, okay, what's my portfolio of career-enhancing experiences and skills? This is where, again, towards this target that you want to go, we want you to think about the volunteer work, the coursework. In some cases, this is a good time to do those kinds of things because things are a little bit quieter in some ways, hiring-wise, okay? And then also, you need to, as part of marketing yourself, you're going to need to take calculated risks to get out of your comfort zone. You do need to do these informational interviews and talk with people to expand and build your network, get their advice about what do I do about my job search now? How can I gain some experience right away? How do I get my foot in the door, okay? And then third and fourth, creating the value. We want you to actively seek opportunities across the organization that you're in now, if you are in one. But if you're looking for a job, you know, it may be that you need to take a position that is not your dream job right now, but it's going to get you into a company or organization that you'd like to move over into a different position in long run because you'd really like to be there. So think about any way that you can get kind of your foot in the door and be open to multiple different opportunities so that you can get to, you know, the long-term path. And then also in terms of creating value, you want to work and build on your transferable skills. So even if, for example, your degree is in, you know, psychology, you can think about, okay, how does that transfer or translate to other possible career paths outside of, for example, being a psychologist or an educator, if for some reason that's not exactly what you want to do? Could it translate into a role in HR? Could it translate into training and development at an organization or professional development at an association, okay? And then finally, we want you to think about optimizing your career life fit. So thinking about the evolution of your career over time. So if I need to start here, kind of at the beginning or the bottom, where do I want to be in 5 years? Okay, I started to look at that and identify it. So I'm going to look at people's LinkedIn profile. What are the 5 steps I need to take over the course of the next several years? Okay, and also think about too, in terms of the career model, what your long-term compensation goal would be, realizing that, okay, I'm not going to make that money tomorrow, but this is where I want to be. How do I move in that direction? Okay. So finally, as we talk about and start to close out before we go to Q&A here, just as a quick reminder with your strategic career plan, some of the guidelines are on this slide. If it feels better for you, by the way, everyone, I just can only think about 1 year right now, Holly. And that's okay with me. Like, start wherever feels the most comfortable for you, okay? And work backwards from there. All right, so I did want to offer you all, and I think I might have hidden the slide by accident. Let me just bear with me 1 second, everybody. Yeah, I did want to just say this really quickly as you get out your pen and paper to write out action steps. We are happy to do if you have additional questions or need some specific advice on your unique situation, and also would like to learn a little bit more about our coaching services. don't hesitate to contact us for a quick consultation that's complimentary with one of our coaches. You would just email us at the same address, admin@hollycrawford.com. So as you're thinking about, wanted to go back here for a second. I moved that slide around in the wrong spot. We want you to think about taking action, everyone. And as I said, we don't expect this to be done tomorrow. What's one small thing that you can do in the next week to move in the right direction? What resonated the most for you today? Is it, I need to start defining my brand, for example, by interviewing other people? Do I need to look at the leadership wheel and do a quick assessment there because I really want to, have something, a tangible tool like that to do that assessment? Or is it scheduling a consultation to talk with us further? Happy to do whatever, but please write down right now one action step that you will take. We are here to help you guys, so please feel free to reach out to us at any point, even well after this presentation today, because we know a lot of people need help out there, and this is what we love to do. Keep in mind, the greatest risk in life isn't taking one. This is my favorite quote. Bottom line is, without risk, there's no reward. So make sure that you push back or push past any of those obstacles that may be holding you back from taking a little bit of risk that we all kind of need to do these days to make things happen in a way that's going to work, given all of the challenges. All right, so go ahead, please, and enter in any questions that you have in the question box. I think that's right, Sarah. I always get confused if there's chat box and question box, but let's go ahead and do that.
Right, questions, yep.
Okay, good. And if we have any already, Sarah, please feel free to share. I'm ready to go, and then we can roll through them as we go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hallie. This has been wonderful. And yes, please feel free to write in your questions for Hallie. And I do recommend following up with her if you have any further questions. She is lovely and happy to answer anything that you have to ask. Hallie, a question about, and I know you've done a webinar with us on this topic, so I feel like you'd be able to speak to it well. But this person says that they just often feel like they don't have the chops or the credibility to be able to reach out to people. To me, that says imposter syndrome. Can you just speak to some basic tips to overcome imposter syndrome, what it is, how to feel more confident? Just want to start there.
Absolutely. Great question. And understandable, you're not alone. So one thing that we do suggest, by the way, is that kind of an overarching thing is once you get the ball rolling with these things, you get so much better. What we have found, honestly, is when people conduct like one informational interview, they feel so much better after kind of ripping off the Band-Aid. So that is one of the things that I'll say is just getting one under your belt, you'll feel better. But also think about and write down all of your, not just your qualifications, but your successes and achievements so far during the course of your whole life. We have clients do that too. That helps them overcome imposter syndrome when they look back and say, oh, I've actually accomplished a lot more than I'm giving myself credit for. Interviewing other people and talking about your strengths or asking them about your strengths, really great confidence boost as well. And they can help you say, look, you remember, you actually do have this experience and expertise. And even if you haven't been doing this for 20 years, you are fantastic at event planning or whatever it is. So those are three of the things that I would recommend doing, as a start. And remember that networking is a two-way street. And when you contact someone and they realize that you're a recent grad or still in school or whatever, they're not going to expect you to have all this wisdom to impart to them or, 20 new connections that you're going to give them. Like, we all get it and we all understand how this networking thing works. So the fact that you put yourself out there in the first place takes a lot of courage, and we get that. And they're going to be impressed with you doing that in and of itself. I hope that helps as a start.
For sure. Thank you. Can you give an example of a personal brand or, components of it?
Sure. So one of our clients was an environmental engineer, and his was, he would say, I am an environmental consultant, because he was an engineer but actually worked in consulting. And his was, and this was kind of his elevator speech, so this is the short version of it, but I help environmental agencies and businesses navigate the minefield of governmental environmental compliance, issues and regulations. So his brand was who he is, who he worked with, and what he helped them do. That's the shortest and sweetest version, but really good, concise version of a brand, because he had all of those different components and even talked about the results. I helped them navigate this minefield. And then, for example, if he's sitting there talking with someone over conference call or whatever it is, he can say a little bit more about his achievements. For example, I worked with XYZ client, customer recently, saved them X amount of money, whatever it is. I realize that not all of you are going to have that kind of work experience now, so you may stop at where we talked about before. Or you can talk about your experience at Georgetown, for example. For example, I worked on these projects and these were the results. So that's one good example that we really like a lot.
Awesome. That's a great example. Thank you. What personality assessment test do you recommend taking?
In terms of, so here's what I'll say. We like the StrengthsFinder.com assessment a lot, because I find that it not only tells you about your strengths, but it gives you some insight into your personality type as well. It kind of combines the two, at least to a certain extent. Another one that's good is Myers-Briggs. With those, they're usually a little bit expensive, though, and you have to pay someone who's certified in those, but that's another one. There are some free tests online, and I don't mean to sound hokey pokey, but I've actually had clients do the Enneagram, and that's really helpful too. And then there's also the DISC assessment. So bottom line, for your purposes, everyone, and where you're at and your career path and age and everything else, I would honestly start with StrengthsFinder.com. Get the top 5 strengths. You don't need the top 30, just start with the top 5. That report.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, we've done Enneagram at work before, and it's really cool. I'll say all of these tests that Hallie mentioned and assessments, they really do help. And they help incredibly also with not only determining who you are, but also how you work on a team, which is so important. So really highly do recommend.
Great. Absolutely. Perfect.
Hallie, another question for you. Do you recommend different approaches for your clients that are seeking positions within the federal government versus the private sector? For example, do you find that this changes the usefulness of informational interviews or networking? For example, since the federal government application process is very standardized. Any insight there?
Great question. So you are going to come across different requirements, because you're right, the federal government, applications are much more standardized, and there's language on there that not everybody understands, et cetera, et cetera. But that doesn't change. The only thing it changes in our minds when we've worked with clients in both sectors is the only thing it changes is in some ways with the federal government, you do need to network even a little bit more so that you can understand what the different pay grades are and everything else. But the networking is the same, talking with people, getting their advice and all of that. Everything else is pretty much the same. You just have to deal with the little bit more cumbersome application process. And in some cases, one could argue that there's more cronyism in one organization versus another. But honestly, that goes across the board too. It's hit or miss there. So bottom line is, no, not a lot of differences. And I would err on the side in a way of more networking with the federal government. Great question.
That's great. Thank you. And then I want to end on this question because I think it's just it's a good way to close out, and also want to give you a chance to share final words of wisdom or advice. But what questions do you suggest asking yourself to find out what you like doing? What are sort of his introspective questions, and even like a journaling activity or something? But what do you suggest to really get at the nut of what we like doing?
Sure. So think about past experiences that you've had, personal and professional, and come up with at least 3 of them. So you've got kind of a sampling. And what was enjoyable about those things to you? So, and don't think about okay, I was with Joe and we were doing this or whatever it was, but what was rewarding and meaningful to you? When did you feel kind of lit up inside, or when time kind of flies for you? What interests do you have and hobbies do you have? And can you translate any of those qualities about those hobbies or interests into elements of your work environment, for example. So I would journal about peak experiences, is what we call them, to help clients identify their values. And this is all in our workbook as well. Identify those peak experiences, write about them a little bit, and think about, okay, what was cool? When are times in my life when I have felt, really jazzed, and how can we translate that over into possible, work experiences? Great question.
That's great. Thank you. Any final words or pieces of advice before we close out today?
Baby steps, and try to stay positive. If you have to turn off the news, that's okay. Please remember, like we said, people are hiring. Just try to take care of yourself health-wise, not just physically, but also mentally, because the more on your game you are when you're going out there and talking with people, the faster this process will go for you. But take it in baby steps. Take little risks at a time, and it'll make it easier.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again, Hallie. It is, as always, a pleasure to work with you. All of you, thanks so much for being here with us today. Thanks for taking the time. Be on the lookout for the webinar follow-up email. It'll have Hallie's information as well as the recording of this session. I'll wish you all a wonderful rest of your day, a good rest of your week. Hallie, thanks again. Hoya Saxa.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.